These events happened to a good friend of mine, Jenna. In the 90s, she and I worked at a big old factory. We lived in a dorm at the time. The country was going through a difficult period. The plant was quietly dying down, and the workers were scattered. We did not have such an opportunity. We had to hold on to some kind of housing. Jenna was always kind, warm-hearted, sweet, but pathologically unlucky. Jenna was the first one to get married. We were happy for her, prepared for the wedding, bought presents. But she didn't get married. Her fiancé left her pregnant. That's how Jenny ended up with a baby in her arms. She had to go to work, barely took her daughter to the nursery, which by some miracle still remained in the balance of the plant. A small child, is a frequent sick leave, and sick leave the dissatisfaction of colleagues. And Jenna was not liked by her boss. Neither her diligence, nor delays at work, nor her dependability saved her. So that time, when her daughter once again fell ill, Jenna listened to a scolding from her superiors on the phone. This time it was more serious. The boss was just furious, and so Jenna promised that she would work at night, putting her daughter with her friends. Night work, on the so-called third shift, was a normal phenomenon, since the factory was making some unnecessary but especially secret things. So the third shift was also the order of the day, and there was a night watchman in every shop. There was a watchman in our shop, too. His name was George. He was a very interesting person. He did not communicate with anyone in particular, walked so quietly that no one heard his footsteps. When he suddenly found himself behind us and coughing delicately, we girls just jumped in surprise, which must have amused him, because his face at that moment was absolutely impenetrable. Only in the gray eyes behind the steel-rimmed glasses was a barely noticeable satisfied grin. Then he apologized very politely and disappeared. Outwardly he looked like a shadow, tall, thin to the point of transparency, of uncertain age, with an inexpressive, unmoving face. George was harmless, however, and we quickly became accustomed to him. After scaring us enough when we worked the third shift, he was happy to keep us company during our tea parties at night vigils. Of all our company, he still singled out Jenna. Some little things would slip into her drawer. A packet of cookies, some vegetables from her garden. When Jenna was left alone in the shop at night, she wasn't particularly startled when a shadow flashed behind her, especially since she had no time to be distracted. Saying hello to George in the void, she shouted for him to put the kettle on in the back room. Jenna didn't hear back, which was fine, but the lights came on and the kettle rumbled in the back room. Her boss had left her a lot of work to do that night, so Jenna couldn't tear herself away for long and remembered the kettle when she heard a delicate cough behind her. A few minutes later, a polite Jenna hurried into the back room, where no one was there, but the kettle was hot. As she peeked out of the back room, she noticed a shadow flickering at the end of the hallway. There was a rumbling sound somewhere, and then the equipment shut off. Jenna assumed the watchman had his own business, so she went to have tea alone. The watchman never showed up, but she didn't think much of it. Already in the morning, as Jenna was getting ready to go home, someone from her supervisor came up to her, brought her a magazine, scrawled in George's calligraphic handwriting, and asked her to sign for turning in her night shift. She was surprised and declined, for the log was always filled out by the watchman. At this point, the foreman made round eyes and informed her that George had been buried the other day. He had died 3 days before. Jenna could not calm down, wondering what had happened that night. She could not sleep. She had practically worked all night. If someone had decided to scare her on purpose, it was impossible to get into the shop at night. And if it seemed so, then who had put the kettle on? The story, strangely enough, the story continued. A month later, Jenna was tracked down by an elderly woman, George's roommate in a communal apartment. He was lonely. His wife had died a long time ago, and there were no children. The woman said that George's room had gone to her family, and when they went through her things, they found a will for an old little house in the suburbs, made out in Jenna's name. So she and the baby moved out of the dorm into a small place of her own. And somehow she had a bad streak since then. But she looks after George's grave. She says that sometimes she sees him in her dreams. She has never encountered such a phenomenon as that night. And when asked if she is afraid to live in this house, she answers with a cower question. Why be afraid of a good man?